Well,
Ow.
good morning. As we injure ourselves this
Yes.
morning, we want to welcome everybody on the video. Want to apologize for last week's video. I'm trying to get it uploaded and lost the data, so I'm going to have to redo that video. But rest assured, I'll make sure it's labeled in the order so you can watch it, so you don't miss anything. However, you can watch all of these independently of each other, so just keep that in mind. But I will try to get it uploaded as quick as I can. It is the Christmas and New Year's holidays, and sometimes it takes a little longer to do these kinds of things. So today we are going to be jumping around a little bit, but mainly we're going to be in Daniel 4. That'll be where we ultimately end up. But we're going to read a few other things prior to that, just to kind of end where we were and bring us where we're at right now. And then we will get back into Ezekiel next week, but we'll talk about that here in just a little bit. So this week we're going to be talking mainly about Daniel and Nebuchadnezzar's dream. Now remember, Nebuchadnezzar is the king of Babylon, and it was under Nebuchadnezzar that Judah was taken into captivity over the course of several years. Remember, there were two main attacks, one for the whole country and then one specifically for Jerusalem. And so just keep that in mind here as we go along. I'm going to share this screen for those of you at home. Pull this up here. Okay, so, and we'll move this out of the way. Okay, so let's get into it. We're going to start off in Jeremiah 52, verses 28 through 30. If someone wants to read those verses, keep in mind there's some long names in here.
These are the people whom Nebuchadnezzar carried away into exile in the 7th year, 3,023 Jews. In the 18th year of Nebuchadnezzar, 832 persons from Jerusalem. In the 23rd year of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, carried into exile 745 Jewish people. There were 4,600 persons in all.
Okay, so that doesn't seem like a lot, does it? No, but it was. But it was.
It's like a lot to me.
Started with two.
It's mainly talking about Jerusalem, but you'll notice the big number is in the 7th year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign. The northern kingdom had already been taken into exile. There were a whole lot more of them. They were bigger, and then in Nebuchadnezzar's 18th year, we get 832 people from Jerusalem. That would have been mainly women and children. The part of that 3023, part of that 3023, that would have been, remember, I think I mentioned that a while back, that the way Babylon worked was they would take the children at a young age, and then they'd take them to where they were going. Then they'd brainwash them, bring them up as their own Babylonians. And then they would set them out to lead the people they were about to take into exile. Well, that's what's happened. So from 7th to the 18th year, there's 11 years that have passed. So Daniel, who was, we know 4 of them specifically, Belteshazzar, which is Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Those 4, they all knew each other. They were friends, but they were all taken during that first exile. And so it's been 11 years. So even if they were 4 or 5 years old, they're 15 now. At the youngest, they're probably in their late teens, maybe early 20s. And then the second would have been the 18th year, 832 people from Jerusalem, and then 5 years later, 745 more Jews. Now that's by Nebuzaradan, who was the imperial guard. That would have been everything we read at the end of Jeremiah. Those were all the people that happened to escape the onslaught originally, and then they're trying to make their way back to their homeland, because that's the identity. And then they were captured and all that. And for those that got away from that group, they ended up going to Egypt, whereas the rest of these were taken into exile as well. And so there were 745 of them. So 4,600 people in all. So now we're going to read a psalm, Psalm 137. This is a psalm from exile. So not all the psalms are from David or Solomon. Psalm 137. There's only 9 verses. It's not that long.
Oh,
So
I mean, actually.
yeah. So if someone wants to read the first 3 verses of that.
Got it?
Okay.
By the years of Babylon, we sat and wept while we remembered Zion. There on the poplars we hung our harps. For there our captors asked us for songs. Our tormentors demanded songs of joy, and they said, "Sing us one of the songs of Zion."
Okay. And then 4 through 6.
How can we sing the songs of the Lord while in a foreign land? If I forget you, Jerusalem, may my right hand forget its skills. May my tongue cling to the roof of my mouth. If I do not remember you, if I do not consider Jerusalem my highest joy.
Okay. And then 7 through 9.
O Lord, remember what the Edomites did on the day the armies of Babylon captured Jerusalem. Destroy it, they yelled, level it to the ground. Babylon, you will be destroyed. Happy is the one who pays you back for what you have done to us. Happy is the one who takes your babies and smashes them against the rocks.
Ooh.
Oh, gross.
This is a song. This, I believe, would have fallen into, if the Jews had ever heard of grunge metal, this would have probably fallen into that category. These were songs, and the Jews used these songs to remember their history. So take it into exile. They've had 15 years now, from the 8th year, the first exile, to the 23rd year. So 15 years to figure it out and learn this song amongst all of them. So they're not going to forget. Of course, the Edomites, remember them? They're the descendants of Esau. So now we get into Daniel 4. Keep in mind, this is going to mainly be in the first person from Nebuchadnezzar. Why Daniel writes that way, I don't know. But then it all of a sudden breaks off into third person with Daniel doing his thing, with Daniel and Nebuchadnezzar communicating, and then it goes back into the first person, Nebuchadnezzar talking. If someone wants to read the first 2 verses, 1 and 2 of Daniel 4.
I'll do it. Okay. Nebuchadnezzar, the king of all the peoples, nations, and men of every language that live in all the earth, may your peace abound. It has seemed good to me to declare the signs and wonder signs the Most High God has done for me. The Most High God has done for me.
Okay, so this is written like a letter from Daniel to King Nebuchadnezzar. But the story we're about to hear, they both know about it, so it seems a little strange that it would be written this way. Daniel is one of the very few. Ezekiel, Daniel, they have some apocalyptic literature in them. Some of this will pertain to that. Most of it is just a story about preparation. We're going to find out why Daniel is so revered in Babylon, and we're going to find out that he even converts the king, at least for a short while. So I've kind of spoiled it for a few of y'all, but continuing on with 3 and going through 5.
How great are his signs and how mighty are his wonders. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and his dominion is from generation to generation. I, Nebuchadnezzar, was at ease in my house and flourishing in my palace. I saw a dream, and it made me fearful, and these fantasies as I lay on my bed, and the visions in my mind kept alarming me.
Okay, so it starts off talking about Nebuchadnezzar, who is the king of all the peoples, of all the nations, of every language. But then it goes from the Most High God, who reigns above everything. So now it's establishing that Nebuchadnezzar may be king of all people, but Nebuchadnezzar is not king of everything. So, so it establishes that pretty quick. And so then it goes into this first person, I, Nebuchadnezzar, and he's had this dream, and this dream has scared the bejesus out of him. Excuse the term.
Yeah, well,
So we'll go on 6 through 8.
6 through 8. So I commanded all the wise men of Babylon be brought before me to interpret the dream for me. When the magicians, enchanters, astrologers, and diviners came, I told them the dream, but they could not interpret it for me. Also 8.
Mhm.
Finally, Daniel came to my presence, and I told him the dream. He is called Belteshazzar, after the name of my God, and the spirit of the holy God is in him.
Okay, so Daniel is his Hebrew name. When they took them captives as kids, they changed their names. This was the way the Babylonians worked in order to further along the brainwashing side of things. They changed their names. So Daniel was never called Daniel, which is why there is a statement here saying he is called Belteshazzar. Remember, Daniel is writing this. So he's got to try to write this from a Babylonian point of view, but he's a Jew and he knows he's a Jew.
he knows it. Okay.
So that's why he's writing as Nebuchadnezzar in the first person, but he calls himself Daniel. And then he has to explain, well, I was called Belteshazzar. Okay. So that's what it is. And Belteshazzar is the name of one of the Babylonian gods. Now, Nebuchadnezzar believed that Daniel had the spirit of the holy gods within him, but Nebuchadnezzar never goes into any detail about that. So, the spirit of the holy gods. Okay, so Nebuchadnezzar knew that Daniel was special. He knew that everything Daniel did was for the betterment of the kingdom of Babylon, but he also knew that Daniel held true to his people. And in order to do that, Daniel had to be special, because that's not an easy thing to do, to devote your allegiance to your God, but have to devote your allegiance work-wise to a country, so or to a kingdom. Okay, so we'll go on 9 through 11.
I said, Beth, or whatever,
Yeah.
chief of the magicians, I know that the spirit of the holy God is in you, and no mystery is too difficult for you. Here's my dream, interpret it for me. These are the visions I saw while lying in bed. I looked, and there before me stood a tree in the middle of the land. Its height was enormous. The tree grew larger and strong, and its top touched the sky. It was visible to the end of the earth.
Okay, so this dream that Nebuchadnezzar has scares the bejesus out of him. So he calls every astrologer, diviner, every magician, everybody who has any sense of the mystical, and none of them can figure it out. Can interpret the dream that he's having. So he calls Daniel in, Belteshazzar, because Daniel has been known to interpret dreams before. So he calls him in, and so he tells him the dream. And so it's a tree that's so large its top reaches to the sky, and who can see it? The whole world can see it. So if someone wants to read 12 through 14.
Okay. It had fresh green leaves, and it was loaded with fruit for all to eat. Wild animals lived in its shade, and the birds nested in its branches. All the world was fed from this tree. Then as I lay there dreaming, I saw a messenger, a holy one, coming down from heaven. The messenger shouted, cut down the tree and lop off its branches, shake off its leaves and scatter its fruit. Chase the wild animals from its shade and the birds from its branches. How far?
That's good.
Okay.
Good. So he sees this tree. It's so beautiful. It reaches to the sky. It's full of fruit. It's feeding every animal that is there with it, every creature known. And then a holy one, a messenger. Now, what do we call messengers?
Angels.
Yeah.
Angels or
Mhm.
messengers. So this is Nebuchadnezzar's version of an angel telling, showing him this vision. So Nebuchadnezzar's having a holy vision here. The loud voice. Every time an angel speaks, it's in a loud voice. If y'all ever look in Scripture, it always talks with a loud voice. And of course, keep in mind, this is just side note, with a loud voice. In the New Testament, we sometimes hear angels singing. We hear choirs of angels, things like that. There's no musical inclination to the word loud or shout or anything like that. So calling it a loud voice, it could very well be singing, but more than likely it's just this loud shout. Everybody could hear it. So, and basically telling it, okay, take the tree away, cut it down, get rid of it all, strip it bare. Okay. 15 through 16.
Yet leave the stump with its roots in the ground, but with a band of iron and bronze around it, in the new grass of the field, and let him be drenched with the dew of heaven, and let him share with the beasts in the gates of the earth. Let his mind be charged from that of a man, and let a beast's mind be given to him, and let 7 periods of time pass over him. That's weird.
Yeah, well, it's going to make sense. Remember, because we got Daniel, he's going to interpret all this.
Oh, good.
So if it doesn't make sense, read further, kind of thing.
Mhm.
I will say this, that all of this will become pretty clear. Remember how this started. How did it describe King Nebuchadnezzar? King of everybody.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But then the king of the Most High was the king of everything.
Mhm.
And so the king of everybody would have been known to everybody. The king of the Most High, not necessarily, but when this messenger, this loud voice, all of this will make sense here pretty
This is
quickly.
weird. This is what stumped me reading.
Well,
this.
you notice it goes into quotation marks.
Well, wait, what, stop, where? Quote 15, you mean to be,
Yeah.
yet leave the stump.
Mhm.
So this is, he's
Well,
saying, this
let
is
him
what
be
Nebuchadnezzar
drenched with the
said.
dew of heaven. Right. The messenger is still talking.
Mhm. Okay. Oh, so this is the angel then that we be talking.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, that makes a little bit more sense.
And Nebuchadnezzar is dreaming this.
Mhm.
Okay, but let his mind be changed from that of a man, and let him be given the mind of an animal till 7 times
Mhm.
pass by for him. Whenever you hear the word time in Scripture, I won't say every instance, but especially when it's attributed to the number 7, time means a year.
Mm. Okay.
So in the book of Revelation, the reason we ascribe 7-year tribulation is at the beginning of Revelation, John's Revelation, it says for a time,
Mhm.
times, and half a time. That would be 3.5 years. A time would be a year. Times would be 2 years. So 3 years, and half a time, half a year. So 3.5 years would be the first part of the tribulation.
I think just say 3.5 years.
Well, because it's apocalyptic literature.
Oh,
It's
okay.
written as such. So whenever you see these things, they trained me to do this in seminary.
Yeah.
When you see these things, you automatically know that you're not talking about a narrative so much anymore.
Mhm.
You're talking about apocalyptic literature.
okay.
So you have to kind of jump into the mindset of that.
This is it's strange how it goes from an it
Which
to a
chapter are we on?
Yeah.
Place.
That, like I
15,
said, here in just a few
15,
minutes, it's going to make a
15.
bunch of
Daniel
sense
15?
Daniel
because
4,
it is
15.
talking about a he.
Well, it sounds like it's talking about an it, like a tree, and all of a sudden it
Mhm.
makes the tree into a man or a
Right.
human.
And that will make sense. Okay. So 17 and 18.
This sentence is by the decree of the angelic watchers, and the decision is the holy command of the holy ones, in order that the living may know that the Most High is ruler over the realm of mankind, and bestows it upon whom he wishes, and sets over it the lowliest of men. This is the dream which I, King Nebuchadnezzar, have seen. Now you, Belteshazzar, tell me its interpretation, inasmuch as none of the wise men of my kingdom is able to make known to me the interpretation. But you are able, for a spirit of the holy gods is in you.
Okay. So nobody else could interpret this for me. I'm banking all this on you, Daniel.
Mhm.
Okay. 9 through the first part of 20.
19.
Or 19. You're correct. Sorry.
First part of 20.
hmm
Okay.
I'll tell you when to stop.
Then Daniel, also called Belteshazzar, was greatly perplexed for a time, and his thoughts terrified him. So the king said, Belteshazzar, do not let the dream or its meanings alarm you. Belteshazzar answered, my lord, it is only a dream applied to your enemies and its meaning to your adversaries.
Okay, stop right there real quick. So Daniel, it says he's perplexed for a time, was greatly perplexed for a time. Now that's just general word time. It's not a specific amount. And his thoughts terrified him because Daniel has figured out what this dream is about. And the king, and he's scared to tell the king.
Mhm.
Well, why would you be afraid to tell the king?
Because the kings don't like it, they'll kill you.
Yeah.
Kings don't
Uh-huh.
like bad news.
Yeah.
So what Daniel has is bad news.
Yeah.
Okay. So the king says, look, don't worry about what I told you and what it means. Just tell me what it means. Don't worry about any of that.
And then I won't kill you.
And Belteshazzar, Daniel answers, my Lord, if only it was about your enemies.
Yeah.
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 So it's like, King Nebuchadnezzar, you don't know what you're asking. You're telling me to give you bad news. And I don't know if I want to do that. So go on with 20 and just continue on. I'll tell you when to stop.
The tree you saw, which grew large and strong, with its top touching the sky, visible to the whole earth, with beautiful leaves and abundant fruit, providing food for all, giving shelter to the wild animals, and having nesting places in the trees for the birds. Your Majesty, you are the tree. You have become strong, great and strong. Your greatness has grown until it reaches the sky, and your dominion extends to the distant parts of the
Okay,
earth.
that's good. So who is the tree?
Nebuchadnezzar.
King Nebuchadnezzar. He's having a dream about himself.
Huh.
All-powerful king. And we've already heard what the rest of the dream is. This messenger coming out and saying, cut down the tree, strip it bare. Nebuchadnezzar knows where the meaning of this dream is going now.
His end,
Well, kind of.
kind of.
Kind
Well,
of.
I'm not hearing an end on it because it's saying bind the stump to retard its growth.
Correct. With bronze and iron.
So they're not killing the roots, they're binding it to hold it back.
Correct. Correct. The root and stump still remain.
So remove the bronze and the iron, and it'll come back again.
That's yes, that's the plan. Of course, now we'll read on and we'll read about the rest of the interpretation. Like I said, this will start to make sense. I think it probably already has already. So 23, somebody read 23.
Your Majesty saw a holy one, a messenger coming down from heaven, saying, cut down the tree and destroy it, but leave the stump bound with iron and brass in the grass of the field, while its roots remain in the ground. Let him be dredged with the dew of heaven. Let him live with the wild animals until 7 times pass by for him.
Okay. Yeah, it's getting weird.
7 periods
7
of
years.
time.
7 years.
7 years.
What
Okay.
will it be? Okay. So there's one difference here. Daniel makes clear one thing about this messenger that Nebuchadnezzar saw, because he didn't know what it was. He just knew it was a messenger. Daniel declares it coming down from heaven. So a loud voice from heaven. How often have we heard that? Okay. So 28 through 30.
We're gonna skip 24 and on?
Did we skip all that, really?
Yeah, we
She
did.
finished 23.
Oh, well, go ahead. Yes, 24 through 27.
Okay. This is what the dream means. Your Majesty, and what the Most High has declared will happen to my lord the king. You will be driven from human society, and you will live in the fields with the wild animals. You will eat grass like a cow, and you will be drenched from the dew of the heavens. 7 periods of time will pass while you live this way until you learn that the Most High rules over the kingdoms of the world and gives them to anyone he chooses. But the stump and the roots of the tree were left in the ground. This means you will receive your kingdom back again when you have learned that heaven rules. King Nebuchadnezzar, please accept my advice. Stop sinning and do what is right. Break from your wicked past and be merciful to the poor. Then you will continue to prosper.
Okay. So we've gotten the interpretation of the dream. I can't believe I left that out. I'll have to go back and fix that. That Nebuchadnezzar is going to have all his power taken from him, and he's going to live like an animal. But if he does what's right, he's going to, when he gets to the end of this 7 periods of time, he's going to realize that God is the God of all, and he's nothing compared to God, that God can take nations and place them under the rule of anyone God chooses. And right now it's Nebuchadnezzar. So 28 through 30, now we get there.
All this happened to Nebuchadnezzar the king. 12 months later, he was walking on the roof of the royal palace of Babylon. The king reflected and said, "This is not Babylon the Great, which I myself have built as a royal residence by the might of my power and for the glory of my majesty."
Okay. Stop right there. Does 30 go on?
No.
No, that's
Oh,
it.
okay, stop right there. So when did all this happen?
The next year.
A year later.
Yeah,
So do you think maybe Nebuchadnezzar forgot what Daniel said?
Of course.
Of course he did.
Well, did he forget it, or did he just never accept it?
Well,
Who
you
knows?
know, I would say he forgot it just based on his reaction. And here he is, he's walking on the roof of his palace. He's seeing all of Babylon there, just looking out, and the great city Babylon. I built this for
Great
my
I am, I
glory.
am. Yeah.
Oh, shouldn't have done that. Daniel even told him in the last section, heed my advice.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that Nebuchadnezzar did not. So 31 and 32.
Even as the words were on his lips, a voice came from God. This is what is decreed for you, King Nebuchadnezzar. Your royal authority has been taken from you. You will be driven away from the people, and you will live with the wild animals. You will eat grass like an ox. 7 times will pass for you until you acknowledge the Most High as sovereign and over all kingdom on earth, and gives them to anyone he wishes.
So exactly what Daniel said is happening.
Now, was there, historically speaking, a coup?
Huh?
Was there a coup then to overthrow him?
No.
Not a military
Yeah,
one.
we'll read on.
Somebody's got to take over the rule of government.
Well, he's got military commanders.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Mhm,
I'm sure there was probably a lot of unrest, certainly.
mhm.
Okay, so 33 and 34.
Immediately, the word concerning Nebuchadnezzar was fulfilled, and he was driven away from mankind and began eating grass like cattle, and his body was drenched with the dew of heaven until his hair had grown like eagle's feathers, and his nails like birds' claws. But at the end of that period, I, Nebuchadnezzar, raised my eyes toward heaven, and my reason returned to me, and I blessed the Most High, and praised and honored him who lives forever. For his dominion is all everlasting dominion.
Okay, stop right
And-
there. Stop right
Stop.
Okay.
there. So it all happened, and we find out what drove him away. And in verse 34, my sanity was restored.
Hmm.
My reason came back. He went insane.
Mhm,
He was so full of himself
mhm.
that he forgot about everybody else. And it's almost like they drove him away, if that he could only think of himself. So the only way to do that, he was insane. The only way to think of himself was to be by himself. So he runs out into no man's land out there and basically lives off the land like ox and cattle, eating grass and whatever else he can find. His hair has grown so long that it's over, I like to think he had his hair feathered, all those actors, have their
Yeah.
hair feathered like Michael Landon, but his claw, his nails have grown. He hasn't cut them in
Yeah.
7 years. 7 years have passed and he's like this out there on his own.
Hmm.
So now, and then he acknowledges the Most High God.
Mhm.
So now we get, I know you read on through 34. It basically starts off as his acknowledgement of praise. It's like Nebuchadnezzar's song. So his dominion is an eternal dominion. His kingdom endures from generation to generation.
Yeah.
And then if someone wants to go ahead and read 35.
All the people of the earth are regarded as nothing. He does as he pleases with the power of heaven and the peoples of the earth. No one can hold back his hand or say to him, what have you done?
Okay. So now, after he's broken into song, now he's back. And all of a sudden everything's back the way it was. It's like there was a pause in time. So for Nebuchadnezzar, there's almost like he went through a time warp.
Mhm.
And from the time he left till the time he returns to power, that's all gone. He can't, I say he can't remember all
Yeah.
that, but Daniel remembers.
Mhm.
So 36 through 37.
At that time, my reason returned to me, and my majesty and splendor were restored to me for the glory of my kingdom. And my counselors and my nobles began seeking me out. So I was reestablished in my sovereignty, and surpassing greatness was added to me. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise, exalt, and honor the King of heaven, for all his works are true, and his ways just, and he is able to humble those who walk in pride.
So it made me quote Christian unquote.
Well, there's that sin of
Yeah.
pride
Mhm.
that God. So we find out what the punishment for pride is:
Mhm.
humility
Yeah,
or humiliation in some
yeah,
cases.
yeah.
So, in answer to your question, there is no record of this ever happening to Nebuchadnezzar.
Mhm.
So we, as Christians, we take this kind of at face value. There are some that count this as a legend.
Mm.
But what I think as a Christian, what I believe this does is this sets this up for the bigger story of Daniel. It sets up Daniel being able to interpret dreams
Mm.
and to tell others what those mean exactly, not leaving out any details. This sets us up for what's to come.
Mm.
Whether it's a legend, whether it really happened, doesn't really
It doesn't
matter.
matter.
It's an advent.
Mhm.
It's a preparation.
I'm trying to remember the history of Nebuchadnezzar. I'm not getting it.
Right. You won't.
Mhm.
The Babylonians were awesome record keepers, and none of this is ever recorded.
So none of him losing his power and all this.
Correct. So when he said, "Was there a coup?" There's never one recorded. Of course, the victors never write the bad stuff.
And he
so-
remained, and Nebuchadnezzar remained a tyrant the whole time.
Right.
So that
There's
this doesn't
never-
really apply.
There's
Change
never
in
any
behavior.
record that Nebuchadnezzar
Yeah.
converted, according to
Mhm.
Babylonian records.
Yeah.
So it could be a legend, but again, I personally believe it is a preparation narrative.
Preparing for something.
It's apocalyptic literature. It
Mhm.
is, an apocalypse is not something to be afraid of. Apocalypse just means the coming of the end.
Yeah.
Whereas eschatology is, specifically about the end. Apocalypse is preparing for the end.
Mm.
So the word apocalypse is not anything to be afraid of. We often just hear it in terms of Armageddon and war
Yeah.
and killing and all that. It's not. It's just a preparation for the end. So that's it for today. The next time we meet, we're going to be back in Ezekiel. Now remember, Daniel is in southern Babylon, Ezekiel is in northern Babylon, what used to be Assyria. And so we're going to read 40 through 41, and it's called Ezekiel's New Vision of Restored Worship. Ezekiel's going to have another vision about the temple and how worship is going to be reenacted. It's all part of that vision that he had the last time we met him about Israel going back to their own home and all that.
Mhm.
He is seeing a vision of what's going to happen once they've done that. 40 and 41 are just part of that. It does continue on. So this really should be called the first part of Ezekiel's New Vision of Restored Worship.
Mhm.
Okay. And we're going to be in Ezekiel for the next few weeks. But we're really close to getting done with Ezekiel. I know everybody's getting a little tired, but I think y'all are tired of it. I was too, because it kind of repeats itself.
Yeah.
A lot. We're not going to be repeating a whole lot from this point. Things are just going to kind of move forward, and then we're going to have a time jump. So, okay. So next week we'll be in Ezekiel 40 and 41. I want to thank everybody watching
Well,
this.
Thank you. for your
And
efforts.
I look forward to seeing y'all. I hope y'all had a Merry Christmas, and I
Yes.
truly hope you
Yes.
have a Happy
We
New
did.
Year. Bye-bye.
You as well.
Yes.
I like Spencer's laser thing.
What?
Spencer